I returned to my hometown a few weeks ago. I was feeling burnt out as an investigative journalist. I thought maybe a short break would help me reconnect with my roots. My parents still lived in the old farmhouse where I grew up, surrounded by empty fields. Those fields used to be full of life. I figured it might be a good chance to find some local stories to write about. As I wandered the familiar paths of my childhood, I stumbled upon the basement. I hadn't gone down there for years. It felt cold as I creaked open the door. I found an old journal sealed in a plastic bag. My stomach fluttered, but curiosity pushed me to open it. The words inside spoke of unsettling happenings on our farm. I felt uneasy reading about strange noises, and missing neighbors. I thought they were just stories to scare kids, but what if they weren't? The first night back, I heard it a tapping at my bedroom window. I brushed it off, thinking it was just the wind. The second night, it came again. My heart raced at the sound. I could have sworn I saw shadows moving outside. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but my gut told me something was wrong. I wondered if my mind was just playing tricks after all the stress that I reached out to a few old friends. They whispered about odd things happening. One neighbor had vanished without a trace. I thought they were trying to freak me out, but the panic in their voices felt real. Was this all folklore? I wasn't sure, but it left me feeling uneasy. That night, my sleep worsened. The tapping grew louder, more desperate. On the third night, I couldn't ignore it. I stared at the window, my heart pounding. Whatever it wasn't giving up. I hesitated, almost falling asleep. Then it came again, tap, tap, tap. Just as I was ready to give in, I saw him. A man was standing in the yard, perfectly still, staring straight at me. I opened the window, feeling foolish. I asked if he was okay, but he didn't answer. My throat went dry, and I thought about shutting the window. When I blinked, he was gone. Just like that. A cold rush filled the room, and my heart sank that I turned off the light, hoping to push it away. But deep down, I knew I wouldn't shake it off. I should have left the journal alone. I wasn't sure if I would ever come back to this town without feeling its secrets. I laid there, filled with questions. Why were they following me? What happened to them? The more I pushed those thoughts down, the more they clawed at me. Then I heard it again, tap, tap, tap. I lay in bed, wide awake, the tapping echoing in my mind. I wanted to dismiss it, to hide under the covers like a kid again. But I was searching for answers, and I wasn't about to turn back now. I finally got up, feeling the chill of the wooden floor against my feet. The shadows in my room danced as I moved toward the window, each step heavy with uncertainty that I cautiously pulled back the curtain. The yard was empty, bathed in moonlight. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, something caught my eye. There, at the far end of the yard, near the old barn, stood a figure. My heart raced again. It looked like the same man, but this time he was slightly closer. Watching. Waiting. That I felt a rush of anger mixed with fear. "What do you want?" I shouted, surprising even myself. But he remained silent, just staring. I felt ridiculously small in that moment, exposed in my pajamas, confronting someone I couldn't understand. Then, without warning, he turned and walked away, slowly trudging into the darkness. For a brief moment, fear mixed with something else. Curiosity. I wondered where he was going, what he could reveal about the stories in the journal. I knew I couldn't make sense of this on my own. Grabbing my jacket, I stepped outside. The cool night air wrapped around me, and I hesitated for a moment at the door. Was I really doing this? My heart pounded, but I pushed the fear down and marched toward the barn. As I approached, I noticed the ground beneath my feet was uneven, filled with long grass and the occasional stone. Moonlight fell through the trees, casting moving shadows that played tricks on my mind. I had to remind myself to breathe. Inside the barn, stables and dusty tools lay in chaos. I struggled to see in the dim light. "Hello?" I called, the sound swallowed by the emptiness. No response. Just silence, but my eyes adjusted, and I spotted something odd in the corner, a wall covered in scraps of paper. As I moved closer, I realized they were newspaper clippings, old and faded. I squinted to read the headlines, each one more chilling than the last: mysterious disappearances in Maple Hollow, local farmer claims he sees ghosts, and children warned to stay indoors at night. I shivered, the reality of the town's dark history hitting me. These weren't just legends, they were warnings. Attached to the clippings were photographs, too. I recognized some of the faces. They were neighbors I had known in passing. What had happened to them? My stomach twisted with unease, the barn creaked suddenly, and I turned, heart racing. I froze. A heavy shadow was rising from the back, a large figure, darker than the rest. I felt the walls closing in as panic surged through me. "Who is there?" I shouted, my voice cracking. In that split second, everything went dark. The flickering light bulb above me died, and I was plunged into blackness. I stumbled back, eyes straining against the dark. A whispering wind swept through the barn, and from the depths came a chilling, familiar voice. "Help us!" I felt my breath hitch. I needed to escape, but my feet refused to move. I wasn't sure what I would find if I stayed, or what I would leave behind if I ran. The voice echoed again, and it wasn't just a plea. It felt like a warning. I took a step back, my pulse hammering in my ears. The voice was unlike anything I'd ever heard, ethereal, desperate yet unmistakably familiar. It was as if the barn itself was speaking, calling out for help. I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back. "Help us," it whispered again. I squared my shoulders, and in the depths of my fear, I found a flicker of determination. I had come this far. If there was something to uncover, I needed to confront it. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew past me, sending chills up my spine. I squinted into the darkness, hoping to make out any shapes. But all I could see were shadows and old tools, a stubborn reminder of abandonment. Fighting panic, I turned my attention back to the wall of clippings. Perhaps something there would explain this eerie call to action. That I reached out, running my fingers over the brittle edges of the yellowing papers. One clipping seemed to flutter slightly, as though a breath of air from nowhere had stirred it. My heart dropped. The headline read, "Local boy found wandering near barn." As I read further, my breath quickened. The article told of a boy who had been lost for days, found disoriented and mute, unable or unwilling to recall his whereabouts. Although it was years old, an unsettling familiarity washed over me. Was this boy connected to the figure I'd seen? Or to the voice calling for help? I pulled away from the clippings to steady myself, and when I noticed the outline of something along the barn floor. I knelt to get a better view, my hands brushing against something cold. It was a locket, half buried in the dirt. I lifted it, dim moonlight catching on its surface. The moment I opened it, I saw two faces, a boy and a girl. They looked familiar, but I couldn't place them. I felt unease creep in. It was as if the locket held secrets I wasn't ready to know. Then, without warning, the barn doors creaked open behind me, sending a rush of cold air inside. I froze again. I hadn't heard anyone approach. I turned slowly, a lump forming in my throat. "Is someone there?" The figure stepped into the dim light, and I gasped. It was the man I had seen before, his eyes reflecting the moonlight in an unnerving way. But he didn't seem threatening. Instead, he looked troubled. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped, trying to keep my voice steady. I asked, "Who are you? What do you know about the boy?" He hesitated, glancing back toward the darkness. "You have to leave. They're coming for you." Panic tightened my chest. "Who's coming? What do you mean?" But before he could answer, a low growl echoed from the shadows, and I felt dread settle in the pit of my stomach. The moment stretched, thick with tension. "Run," he urged, and I knew I didn't need to hear anything more. I turned and dashed for the barn door, not looking back. The chilling voice from the shadows rang in my ears, blending with the growl that signaled I was no longer alone. Whatever those clippings and locket pointed to, I was caught in something I couldn't begin to understand. The barn door slammed behind me, rattling on its hinges as I burst into the open air. Cool night breezes hit my face, but they did little to erase the oppressive weight of what I'd just left behind. The growl echoed in my ears, and I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting something to chase me out. Nothing followed. Just darkness and the eerie silence of the night. Heart racing, I sprinted toward the road, the locket clutched tightly in my hand. I hadn't even registered how far into the field I had wandered until the barn's silhouette shrank behind me. I could hardly think, all I could focus on was the urgent need to put distance between myself and that barn, and whatever waited inside. As my breath came in ragged gasps, I saw a faint glow ahead. A street lamp, flickering like a weak heartbeat. Relief washed over me. I picked up speed, desperate to reach its light. Just a bit further. When I reached the lamp, I leaned against the pole, attempting to slow my racing heart. I looked down at the locket again. The faces inside stared back at me, and I felt an odd pull toward their familiarity. Who were they? What had I stumbled upon in that barn? I took a deep breath, calming my frantic thoughts. I needed a plan. Maybe my neighbor would have answers. After all, she had lived in this town longer than anyone I knew. I turned on my heel and started walking, scanning the shadows. As I made my way along the darkened road, I pulled out my phone. The time read nearly midnight. No surprises there. As if sensing my urgency, I typed a message to my neighbor, asking if I could come over. No reply. It struck me just how late it was and how small this town could feel at night. Then I heard footsteps. Not the soft shuffling you might expect, but the unmistakable sound of heavy boots on pavement. I stopped abruptly, holding my breath, straining to listen. The noise drew closer, and when I turned, bracing myself, I saw a figure emerging from the shadows. Hey! You! It was a young man, probably in his 20s, and he didn't appear to be friendly. Unease rippled through me again. Haven't seen you around here before, he said, voice dripping with suspicion. What do you want? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He stepped forward, and intuitive dread surged in my gut. You don't need to be out here alone. It's not safe. You could get lost. The casual tone masked an undercurrent of warning. His eyes flicked to the locket still in my hand, and something shifted in his expression. I took a step back, unwilling to show any fear. I'm fine, really. I was just leaving. He didn't move, his gaze piercing. You shouldn't go back there. Not after dark. You don't know what lives in that barn. A chill ran down my spine, and I felt the weight of the darkness behind me. What do you mean? I asked, feeling the air grow heavier. Just then, I caught the faintest sound, a whisper that seemed to float on the wind. Help us, the voice. It sent shivers racing through me. The young man seemed to notice my change, shifting uneasily. You heard it too? I nodded slowly. The night had never felt more alive, the shadows creeping closer. There was something here I needed to understand. Something that was drawing me back to the barn, and I wasn't sure I had a choice. What's really going on? I pressed, heart thudding in my chest. He leaned in, a serious look settling on his face. You have to trust me. They're watching. And if you don't leave now, you might not get another chance. Panic surged anew, and I felt the grip of something dark tightening around me. I didn't understand. I didn't know what lay ahead, but as his words sank in, I realized I had to make a decision quickly. Just then, the whisper grew louder, almost urgent. And my feet felt glued to the ground as uncertainty knotted in my stomach. I knew I had to act before whatever was coming caught up to me. I took a shaky step back, my instincts screaming that I needed to get away, but curiosity gnawed at me. Who is watching? What happened back there? I asked urgently. The young man shifted his weight, glancing over his shoulder. You don't want to know. Trust me. There was something in his eyes, a flicker of fear that pulled at me. His intensity was unsettling, but the energy in the air around us crackled with tension. Just then, a rustling came from the bushes nearby, making my heart jump. I turned my head, seeing shadows shift and swirl like they had a life of their own. A chill raced down my back. What was that? He grabbed my arm, pulling me closer. We need to get out of here, he urged, his grip firm. Now. A piece of me wanted to run, but where could I go? I was drawn to the mystery of the barn, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that staying here was a mistake. I started to pull away from his grasp, struggling to keep my voice steady. Wait. Why is it so important that I leave? He sighed, desperation seeping into his voice. Because whatever is in that barn doesn't just want to watch. It wants to take. The weight of his words sank in like stones in my stomach. My mind whirled with thoughts of the growl I had heard earlier, the whispers I still felt echoing in the night. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the air, jolting me from my spiraling thoughts. The sound came from where the barn stood. My heart raced, caught between wanting to flee and an undeniable urge to uncover what was happening. What was that? He looked more concerned now. That's not a good sign. We have to go. But something compelled me to stay. An inner voice whispered that Lockett still held answers, the kind I couldn't afford to leave unexplored. I turned to face him, teeth clenched. No. I need to know. I can't just walk away. He stared at me, his expression a mixture of disbelief and anger. You're out of your mind. You have no idea what you're up against. Then help me, I shot back. The urgency in my voice had shifted, determination taking over. I raised the locket, my fingers grazing its cold surface. I need to know what connects me to this. For a moment, silence surrounded us, our breaths mingling in the tension. He hesitated, casting a wary glance back towards the barn. Finally, he relented, his voice softening just a touch. If you're going in, I'm coming with you. But we have to be quiet. They'll know if we're loud. Swallowing my fear, I nodded. Hot adrenaline coursed through my veins as I turned toward the barn. Every step felt heavy with uncertainty. As we approached, the air grew thick, almost alive, the whispers swirling around us, calling out in a mocking tone. I felt compelled to follow. It was like a spell had been cast. When we finally reached the barn door, it creaked open as if welcoming us back into the darkness. I prepared for the worst but still couldn't shake the sense of urgency. I had to know who those faces were and what lay hidden inside, that's when I saw it. The floorboards beneath us shifted, revealing a trapdoor. It creaked open slowly, the wood groaning as if it protested against the darkness below. What is that? I whispered, heart racing. The young man's face paled as he glanced at me. I don't know, but we have to be careful. But before I could respond, the door slipped open fully, and the whisper echoed again, clearer this time, chilling me to the bone. Help us please now, there was no turning back. I hesitated at the edge of the trapdoor, the darkness below seeming to reach out, tugging at my curiosity. My heart thudded in my chest as a chill swept through the air, wrapping around us like a heavy fog. I felt the young man's hand tighten on my arm. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. No, I admitted, but I have to. I took a deep breath and leaned in closer to the opening. Straining my eyes, I tried to see what awaited us below. The dim light barely illuminated the space. I could make out rough stone walls and a faint line of what looked like old, rusted chains. Something about it felt wrong, as if the darkness below was alive, waiting for us. The whispers intensified, swirling in my mind. Help us please, it seemed to beckon me closer. I can't hear them, he said, frowning. What are they saying? I swiveled my head towards him, searching for reassurance. "It sounds like someone is down there," I said, my voice trembling. "We have to check." He gritted his teeth, biting back his fear. "Fine, but we stick together. If anything goes wrong, yeah, I know." I took another step, adrenaline pushing me forward. We descended cautiously, the creaking of the old boards echoing in the quiet. Each step felt like a mile, the darkness wrapping around us. I could feel my heart rate quicken, the air thickening with anticipation. When my foot finally touched the cold, hard ground, I froze. The shadows danced around me, flickering like ghosts in my peripheral vision. The whispers pulsed, now urgent, almost desperate. "Are you all right?" the young man asked, his eyes wide as he peered into the darkness. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "What if they're trapped?" "Or worse," he murmured, glancing over his shoulder. That's when I noticed a flicker of light deep in the corner of the underground space. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. "There," I said, pointing. "Something's over there." We moved cautiously towards the light. As we approached, the shapes became clearer. Faces appeared in the shadows, pale, with eyes filled with a haunting sorrow. Panic bubbled inside me. "Who are you?" The figures reached out, their hands trembling. "Help us, please," they echoed, the desperation in their voices clawing at my mind. "What is happening?" I stammered, stepping back and nearly tripping on the uneven ground. The young man pulled me close, urgency flashing in his eyes. "We have to get out of here. Now." But as I looked back at the faces, I felt a deep connection. "No," I said, shaking my head. "They need us." But just as I resolved to move forward, the flickering light went out, plunging us into darkness. "Run!" he shouted, but before I could follow, a chilling scream filled the room. The figures began to dissolve into shadow, melting away like mist. Anxiety coursed through me. I wanted to save them, but the urgency from the young man broke through. With a jolt, I turned, pushing against the fear clawing at me. "Let us go." Just as we raced back toward the trapdoor, the whispers turned into growls, almost breaking through the silence. I glanced back one last time, catching a glimpse of a shadow darting in the corner of my eye. Then everything went dark. The trapdoor slammed shut above us, sealing us in with an unknown terror. I gasped as the suffocating darkness enveloped us. My pulse raced, the air thick with a musty scent that made me want to choke. I stumbled back, feeling the young man's hand on my shoulder. "Stay close," he urged. We stood in silence for a moment, the whispers still echoing around us. I fought against the urge to scream. There was something wrong, something off in this place that I couldn't quite put my finger on. "What do we do?" I whispered, my voice breaking. Before he could respond, I heard a faint scraping noise nearby. It grew louder, echoing off the stone walls. My heart thundered. "Did you hear that?" He nodded, his face pale as he squinted into the blackness. "Let us find a way out. We can't stay here." But I was frozen, my eyes adjusting to the dark. I could see shapes looming in front of us, the remnants of what had once been solid form, barrels, maybe, or crates. "We can't leave yet," I stammered. "Not without knowing what happened to them." He stepped forward, his voice firm. "We don't know if they're even real. They could be a trick." But I felt a pull, a desperate need to uncover the truth. The figures had seemed so real. What if they need our help? I pressed, desperation creeping into my tone. Suddenly, the ground beneath us rumbled, a deep, resonating growl vibrating through the floor. "Get to the wall!" he yelled, pulling me behind a stone column. The growl morphed into a guttural roar, echoing through the chamber. The darkness felt oppressive, a heavy weight pressing in from all sides. Shadows flickered, forming monstrous shapes that loomed over us. I could barely breathe, every instinct screamed for me to run. "Look!" I pointed toward what appeared to be a flickering form, illuminating a patch of wall with dim light. It hung there, like a lone firefly trapped in a cavernous abyss. Something's up ahead. Are you crazy? That's not a safe bet. He shouted, leaning against the column, but curiosity overcame fear. I stepped out, skirting the walls and inching closer to the light. As I approached, a figure took shape. A woman, her face twisted in anguish, seemed to flicker in and out of existence. She raised her hands toward me, eyes pleading. "Help me," she gasped, her voice crackling like electricity. I took a shaky step forward, reaching out instinctively. But just then, the ground beneath me gave way. I fell, my body dropping into a hidden pit below, a cold wave of terror washing over me. I twisted in midair, grasping at the edges of the hole as I went down. Just before I hit the bottom, I caught a glimpse of the young man's horrified face staring down at me. "No!" he shouted, his voice faint. Then everything went black. I lay on the hard ground, my body throbbing. The air felt different now, thicker, charged with an undeniable energy. I opened my eyes, and the dim glow returned, illuminating the walls covered in strange carvings and symbols. That's when I saw it. A door, cracked slightly ajar on the far side. Tremors of fear raced through me. I pushed myself up, realizing I was not alone. Something else was watching. The shadows shifted as I slowly rose to my feet, a sharp pain shooting through my ankle. I bit my lip to keep from crying out. My eyes darted around, scanning the dim light for any movement. The sensation of being watched was palpable, almost suffocating. There were whispers again, low and unintelligible, wrapping around me like a cold mist. I closed my eyes, trying to focus. Something was here, hidden in the darkness. Every instinct screamed to turn and flee, but the door was my only way out, and I knew I had to reach it. That I limped forward, carefully navigating the uneven ground. The carvings on the walls drew me in. They were intricate, almost beautiful, but fear gnawed at my curiosity. They depicted scenes of people, some in anguish, others in celebration. A shiver ran down my spine when I recognized one of the faces. It was the woman from before, her expression one of desperation. "Why are you trapped here?" I whispered, reaching a tentative hand toward her likeness. At that moment, the whispers grew louder, a chaotic symphony that filled the air. "You shouldn't be here, not here," they seemed to say, echoing in my head. That I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. No, I needed to keep going. Mustering whatever courage I had left, I continued toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the ground itself was trying to pull me back. As I drew closer to the door, a flash of movement caught my eye. My heart raced. Something darted between the shadows. I turned quickly, but saw nothing. I glanced back to the door. It was still ajar, and the flickering light emanating from the crack beckoned me. Suddenly, I felt a cold breath against my neck that froze me in place. "Leave this place," a voice hissed, laced with malice. A figure materialized in the dim light, its features obscured by the darkness. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled backward, my back hitting the wall. "Please. I need to help her," I shouted, my voice shaky. The figure tilted its head, almost curiously. "Help?" it echoed, a harsh laugh trembling through the air. "There's nothing here for you. She is but a part of this place, just like you soon will be." My breath came in short gasps. I had to get out. With every ounce of strength I had left, I bolted toward the door, pushing it open wider. It creaked ominously, revealing a small, dimly lit hallway beyond. But as I stepped through the threshold, the figure lunged. I felt its icy grasp around my arm, pulling me back. "You're not leaving," it hissed in a voice that chilled my blood. That I wrestled free, fueled by terror, and stumbled down the darkened hallway. I ran blindly, the whispers chasing me like shadows, growing louder. I didn't look back. Each footfall felt heavier, the air thickening like a fog. Just as I thought I'd escaped, I crashed into something solid, a wall. I spun around, panting, the shadows closing in. But ahead, a sliver of light flickered at the end of the hallway. I rushed toward it, desperation clawing at my insides. Could I really escape? Or was I doomed to join the flickering shapes that haunted this place forever? As I reached the end of the corridor, fear and hope battled within me. Just before I burst into the light, I heard that familiar voice again. You can't run from your fate. You will return. And then I was through. The light enveloped me in a warm glow, a stark contrast to the darkness I had just fled. I stumbled forward, my eyes adjusting to the brightness. It felt surreal, as if I had crossed into another world. The hallway behind me faded into shadows, and the whispers softened into silence that I found myself in a small room, seemingly ordinary. A wooden table sat in the center, covered with papers. An old, dusty lamp flickered in the corner, projecting uneven shapes onto the walls. I took a cautious step inside, my heart still racing, that a chill ran down my spine as I scanned the room. Something was off. The papers were scattered and hastily written, like notes from someone in a panic. I picked one up. It was a map, but not one I recognized. It showed a layout of the very building I had just escaped. My throat tightened. Why was there a map of this place? I flipped through the papers, each one revealing more confusion, writings about rituals, sacrifices, and names I didn't understand. One name stood out, Elena. My heart sank. Was this the woman I had seen? I needed answers. As I read, the door I had just come through creaked open. I froze, clutching the paper tightly. The figure from before stepped in, its form cast in shadow again. You should not have come here, it hissed, gliding closer. My breath caught. Who are you? I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. The figure paused, the air thick with tension. I am the guardian of this place, and you have awakened what should remain asleep, it said, its voice echoing with warning. Elena's fate is entwined with yours now. You cannot escape what you have stumbled upon. With each word, I felt the weight of the darkness press against me. I had to understand. What happened to Elena? The creature's laughter filled the room, dark and humorless. She is a mere echo now, bound to this realm. But perhaps you can join her. You seem so eager to help. I shook my head, moving back instinctively. The room around me felt smaller, more suffocating. No. I shouted. I refuse to be a part of this. As if my defiance triggered something, the map on the table began to glow. Lines traced themselves, revealing a new path. I could see an escape route right beyond this room, leading outside. Hope ignited within me. Foolish girl. You cannot outrun your fate. The guardian screeched, lunging toward me. I bolted for the door, papers flying as I raced past the figure. My foot hit the edge of the map, and I felt a jolt of energy surge through me. Everything spun, and I dashed through the doorway into another hallway, this one even darker and more claustrophobic. That I in the distance, I could see another flicker of light, enticing yet ominous. My heart hammered in my chest as I sprinted toward it, a single thought repeating in my mind, I had to find Elena. But as I closed in on the light, I sensed it wasn't just an escape. This light felt different, like a beacon calling me back to the shadows. I reached out just as the whispers shattered the silence again, rising to a deafening crescendo. That's when I saw it, a reflection staring back at me, not just mine, but someone else's, too. The realization hit me, cold and paralyzing, I was not alone in this nightmare. I blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The reflection, there were two faces. One was mine, and the other was Elena's. Her eyes, wide and filled with sorrow, stared back at me from the shadows. Help me, she mouthed silently, her lips trembling. Panic surged through me. This was beyond anything I had imagined. I suddenly felt the air shift as the guardian's shadow loomed closer behind me. I had to move, had to escape this entanglement that felt inescapable. I lunged forward, taking my hand off the wall, and the reflection faded momentarily. Light flared around me, blindingly bright, and in an instant, I was plunged back into the cold darkness of the hallway where I'd just come from. I staggered, disoriented but driven by a single instinct to survive. I sprinted forward, breathless, my heart racing like it might burst. The whispers in my ears grew louder once again, echoing with urgency. "Help us, stay with us." I slammed into a wall and stumbled back. The ground beneath me vibrated ominously. My fingers grazed the surface, and for a moment, I felt a pulse, a rhythm matching my thudding heart. Against all instincts screaming within me to run, I pressed my palm flat against the rough surface. Suddenly, a doorway flickered into existence, glowing faintly. The door swung open as if alive and beckoning me to enter. A moment of doubt crept in. What awaited me there? Would it be salvation or another trap? The whispers echoed, sending a shiver down my spine. I had to make a choice. Taking a deep breath, I stepped through the threshold. Inside, the room was ethereal, the light surreal but warm. I noticed the paper strewn throughout the space, the same maps, the same disturbing notes about rituals and sacrifices. But the shadows here felt different. They were less menacing and more sorrowful, as if they were simply echoes of the past rather than active threats. "Elena!" I called out, my voice steady. The light pulsed in response, rippling like the surface of a lake disturbed by a soft breeze. I felt her presence, close, almost tangible. The atmosphere shifted, and I dimly sensed shadows shifting behind me. I turned slowly, dreading the sight of the guardian returning, but instead saw figures standing at the edges of the room, pale faces I recognized from childhood stories. Neighbors long gone, the familiar warmth of their smiles flooding back, battling the chilling despair. They reached out, their fingers outstretched. "Help us, reunite us." "Elena," I murmured, taking a trembling step toward them. "What happened to you?" She stepped forward, her eyes filled with an unspoken sorrow and urgency. "They bound me, trapped my soul in this space. You have the key to set me free." "Free?" I hesitated. Could I truly help them? As if sensing my uncertainty, she nodded, the light around her brightening, illuminating every corner of the room. "You have to choose. Help me escape this cycle or bind yourself to this fate forever." Suddenly, the whispers grew frantic, clawing at my sanity. I shifted my gaze toward the doorway I had entered through. The guardian was there, a deep growl emanating from the shadows. "You cannot save them. Their fate is sealed." Tension surged within me, and in that moment, I made my choice. Determination coursed through my veins. "It's not over yet." I turned back toward Elena. "What do I need to do?" A distant echo of warmth filled the room. "You must break the bond that binds us." I frowned. "Bonds?" "Find the locket," she urged, her voice threading through the chaos around us. "It holds the truth." The ground trembled beneath me, hot and alive with misery. "Where?" I called. The shadows shifted closer, surrounding me. I felt fingers grazing my shoulders, pressing me down into the light, urging me to submit. "Leave this place. Join us forever." "No!" I shouted, shaking them off. I moved wildly, searching for the locket I had seen earlier, remembering the faces within. It had to be here, my only link to unraveling this mystery and saving them. The guardian lunged, its chilling grip crashing against me. I twisted away, desperate. There had to be a way out. There had to be a way to break free. I felt a pull in my chest, remembering the warmth of the locket in my hand. That I spun to face the glowing figures. "What if I can't do it?" Elena's face brightened, her voice firm. "You can. But you must trust your instincts. Follow your heart." Following my heart. In that moment of clarity, I calmed my racing thoughts and closed my eyes, focusing on the warmth of the locket. Images floated behind my lids, faces lined with fear, hands outstretched toward me. If I ever hoped to break this cycle, I had to embrace the truth of their fate. I shook off the guardian's grasp, filled with newfound courage. As I opened my eyes, I wasn't looking to escape, I was ready to confront whatever this was. I dashed toward the exit, racing thoughts melding with the pulse of the locket's energy. Please! I yelled against their cries, the shadows swirling around me like a storm. I grasped the locket, wishing with all my strength. Set us free. The room erupted in a blinding light, radiating through the shadows as they screamed, "You cannot escape your fate." But their voices faded into the brilliance engulfing me. As I opened my eyes, the world around me shifted, bursts of brilliant light fading around me. I lay gasping on hard ground, the faint cries of my neighbors quieting into the distance. A blaring siren echoed in my ears. I brushed my hands against the cool earth. I was back standing in the familiar setting of the old barn. The figures were gone, but I was alive and free. I looked down, my hands were empty. The locket was gone. Sirens blared closer, and I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. But was it truly over? I staggered outside into the pale dawn light, gasping for breath, and there was my neighbor, eyes wide, standing stunned. "Sarah! I found you!" she cried, rushing toward me. I met her gaze, but my heart felt heavy. I had escaped, but what had I truly left behind? The whispers still echoed in the back of my mind, and the townsfolk would always remain part of me. I didn't know what happened next, but I could feel their stories intertwining with mine. That it changed how I see things, how I look at the shadows that dance just beyond light. Whether something had come alive that night, whispering secrets through the air, or if it had all been a dark manifestation of fear, I may never know. I moved to a different city not long after. But sometimes, late at night, those whispers come back, floating on the breeze like a forgotten memory. And I wonder whatever dwelled behind that barn, had it really been put to rest?